Daniel, you know, from last time, and we've got.
I know Daniel, yes.
Yeah,
Great to
so
see you.
thanks, Lisa. And so I wanted, without any further ado, because I'm sure that Palace has a million different places to be, we're really happy that you're making an appearance to introduce and let us know a little bit about your role, and then give us a nice pass off to Evan, if you don't mind, Palace. But when we invited Palace, what we want to do, being very region specific, is to get to know our players, both in the public and the private space, as we get to know each other. And we're lucky to have Palace drop in with us, and we're excited to hear from Evan. So thank you, Palace.
It's my absolute pleasure. I am happy to be here. Palace, Washington. I am a regional manager with Neighborhood and Community Services. Neighborhood and Community Services is one of the Health and Human Services for Fairfax County. And embedded in Health and Human Services is the idea that we are working with people, looking at their well-being, and we do that very well in Neighborhood and Community Services through our service rendition at community centers, teen centers, especially at senior centers. Though we have a fleet of senior centers throughout Fairfax County, we definitely have 4 great ones here in Region 1 that many of our seniors frequent and are a place for gathering, but also for seniors to form a network of support within the community. Though I operate within the region, and I am the regional manager for Neighborhood and Community Services, which encompasses all of Mount Vernon and Lee districts, I absolutely could not let this opportunity pass without inviting Evan Braff. Evan Braff is one of 4. We're 4 regional managers throughout Fairfax County. And in his role, he is our subject matter expert in senior, older adults, and really looks at not only the regional efforts, but also system-wide, and how trends and data that happens at a regional level impacts how we look at decision-making and policies at a system level. So I really wanted to invite him so that you could get firsthand the information that truly drives the conversation around senior population in Fairfax County. And without further ado, Evan Braff.
That's great. Thanks so much, Palace. Terrific.
So what I'm going to do right now, it's I guess we're at the afternoon mark, so good afternoon. I'm going to try to go ahead and share my screen here and bring up a presentation for you all. Does everybody see this on the screen? So I'm going to start us from the beginning. So I know Palace and I are real excited to be here today. As Palace indicated, I'm one of our regional managers. We have 4 regions. And so really what I want to do today is give a very high level of just some of the demographics overall in the county. And then I know Palace at some point can come back and give you regional profiles that we've kind of developed for each of the regions. And then from there, I want to just talk about a little of how we organize our work from a system level, and then just talk about some stuff that we're doing in Neighborhood and Community Services. I'm going to touch a little bit on our COVID-19 response. And then at the end of the presentation, I'm just going to, I know as you guys are forming, I just put in some suggestions maybe of some other groups or folks you would like to have come talk to you. And between Palace and I, we could definitely help arrange some of that. So what I have on the screen here right now is if you ever get a chance, you can go into the county's website, and they will actually, they have some great demographic data. Or 2020 demographic report just came out. So this just kind of tells you a little bit about the different age groups that we have. As you can see, some things that I want to just bring your highlight to you is just the number of residents living in the area, number of folks that are in the poverty rate. That's something that we definitely look at and and Health and Human Services. And then the amount of income that's going from housing. And that's just a real good indicator for us, whether or not somebody is financially okay. And then just the number of folks that are in the workforce. And as you can see, it's about half and half when you start going from the 50 to 80. And then if you go online, what you can do is you can segment it out by 50 to 59, 60 to 69, 70 to 79, and 80, and just kind of look at all the various different demographics. The next table that I'm showing you, and I think this is of most interest, is just looking at, and this is from 2020 to 2024, overall as a county, where we're going with the population. And so you can see that there is a significant increase in those folks who are 65 and over, going from 2020 to 2024. And what I'll do is after this presentation, I'll make sure that everybody has a copy so they can, go through and tinker with it. And I'll be sending out some other websites where you can play with the data. The county's done a really good job of having data by regions and by districts. And so what I really want to talk about today is right now, and I think this is the most important stat, every 1 in 7 adults living in Fairfax County are 65 and over. And by 2035, that's going to be 1 in 5. So, even though we're pacing, we're going at a rate where when we hit 2030 and where we are now, we're kind of way ahead of where we are as it relates to our older adult population, and just knowing that we got to prepare for that in Fairfax County. So I really appreciate the fact that that this group is meeting to start thinking about regionally what are those specific needs and how can we partner with each other and with the county to meet this demand. Because the message that I've been sharing with folks is that the county can't go at this alone, and we're going to need co-designers and co-sponsors with us as we move this work forward. The other thing that I want to share with you is in February of 2019, for the first time, we did a county wide survey for older adults. And to me, this is probably one of the most important things that we've done in the last 20 years as it relates to our older adult community. We got funding from the Board of Supervisors to do, probably going to do this survey every 3 years. It's a random sample survey that goes out to residents who are 50 and over. We're able to actually get the information by supervisor district. And if you go on the website for the 50 community survey, you actually have information by each of the supervisors districts that can really give you some in-depth information about how our older adult is feeling in regards to services they're currently receiving and what they'll think they'll need in the future to successfully age in Fairfax County. Our plan is to be doing this survey, like I said, again, every 3 years. One of the things that I think I was most proud of is the fact that we had a tremendous response back. And so if you know anything about surveys, our error rate was plus or minus 1%. So we really have some rich data here in regards to the response that we got back from our older adult community, which tells me, we did a great job of marketing, as well as that we have older adults in this community that are really interested about being engaged in and having a voice in what we do. So I just want to talk a little bit about our countywide planning for older adults. The first thing that is really driving our work, and this is something that I would share with all of you, is our One Fairfax policy, which talks about racial and social equity. And really in our older adult community, even though we have folks who are 65 and over, or 50 and over, we're trying to be really intentional about looking at subpopulations, especially those folks of color, to make sure that they're getting the services they need. And the One Fairfax policy is really about creating a level playing field where everybody has an opportunity to succeed in Fairfax County and to age successfully in Fairfax County. And one of the things that I always remind folks is sometimes when they hear about this policy, they think, well, it's about taking one thing from another group and giving it to another group. And that's not what the policy is about. It's about resourcing up the groups, maybe where for a variety of reasons, maybe we've created some systems and structures that prevent people from getting where they need to be. And we need to resource that so there's an even level playing field. So I would definitely recommend, as you're doing your work, I know Palace has been heavily involved in the One Fairfax work, and we have other colleagues who have. I would really make that a priority to have somebody come back in and give you a briefing on this work, so you can think about, as you're framing your work moving forward, how you can be intentional about including the One Fairfax policy. We also have a countywide strategic plan process that is in place, and we're in the process right now of getting feedback on that. When I send out the PowerPoint to you, you'll be able to click into each of these websites. So I've created links for you so you can go in there and you can look at it. Our county executive, Brian Hill, when he joined us, I guess about 3 years ago, one of the things that he noticed was we had, a plethora of strategic plans. And we know when that happens, that it really doesn't present an opportunity for efficiencies, as well as our ability to work as a system. And so I appreciate the fact that that was probably one of his first main initiatives, was to bring us together to have a county-wide strategic plan. It's still in its planning stages, and hopefully will be adopted by the board next fall. But I think there is an opportunity, if you go in there and you look at the plan, you'll definitely see strategies as it relates to our older adult community. The other thing that we have in the county is we have the Shape the Future aging. And this plan, unfortunately, is on hold due to COVID-19. But the county, since 2004, every year they have a specific strategic plan for our older adult community. And that plan is actually managed by the Area Office on Aging. So it would be another group that I think would be really important for you all to bring back and think about how you can engage. And so I would just encourage you all to kind of really think about that and bringing them in. And then lastly, I think this was what you all were kind of talking about, is just the work around COVID-19. So our board of supervisors this summer, recognizing that we couldn't get to the Shape the Future aging plan, made the decision that we were going to have a COVID-19 response plan for older adults. So you can click in on that, and I'll be coming back later in the presentation and talking a little bit more about our efforts there. So I just want to talk a little bit about just how does the work get done in the county, and who are those folks who are doing work on behalf of residents. And so I definitely think our board of supervisors, there's a board of supervisors older adult committee that meets monthly, just to talk about resources and the direction we need to go. The board utilizes basically 3 boards or councils to kind of get resident input. And the first is the Commission on Aging, and each board member appoints 1 member from each district, and then there is an at-large member. And so those folks meet on a monthly basis to talk about issues and to advocate on behalf of older adults to the Board of Supervisors. It would be important for me to also talk about the Disability Services Board. So one of the things that I would maybe ask you all to consider as you're starting to think about your older adult community is maybe to consider broadening that to also including those organizations that work with adults and older adults with disabilities. Because in the work that we do, it's linked hand in hand. And then the final group that gets together is our long-term care coordinating council. And that's not necessarily a board appointed group, but it is different stakeholders that are coming together, public and private, to work on long-term care issues from the county and really try to do it from a collective impact model where we're working collectively to around a shared vision and shared outcomes to support our older adult and those individuals with disabilities. As Palace mentioned, I serve in the role of our NCS older adult program manager. So I sit on the county's long-term care cross-agency team. And this is an internal team made up of all of those agencies that are specifically working with older adults and individuals with disabilities. And our work is really cross-system work. So we're talking as a system and talking about how we can work collaboratively and integrate and collaborate. And a big portion of this work is how we provide a continuum of care services for Fairfax County residents. As we know, older adults, as they're aging, require different levels of care. And then just it kind of filters down once we kind of create these long-term goals and priorities. Then at the department level, there's specific programs and initiatives that each department carries out. I provided a list at the end here of different agencies you may want to include. And then I think the most important wheel to the work that we do is our nonprofits, our places of worship, and so much more. And what I mean by so much more is our business community and folks. And I think one of the shifts that we're really making in the county, and I know that Palace is leading these efforts with some of our other staff, is just around the way that we're doing community engagement and being a lot more intentional about resident-driven processes. And I think what you're going to start seeing happen more and more is that we want the community to really either lead or be co-designers with us as we think about different programs, services, initiatives, and facilities that we're bringing to Fairfax County for the older adult community and just the community at large. I just now want to pivot a little bit and just kind of talk. Yeah.
Sorry, do you mind if I just interject with a real life example of how that's actually working, which you just described? Sure. So I've served on the long-term care coordinating committee. I just joined officially and was unofficial before my job as neighborhood coordinator for my civic association. So I've been able to see how that committee works. And then this year, the LTCCC, as it's called, has not been meeting because of COVID, but there's a special COVID task force that I've been on, made up of communities and nonprofits like myself and others. And we've actually been able to give, our own on the ground examples of what's going on to inform the larger COVID task force that you mentioned in getting out appropriate information, shifting, helping with the phone number was too small. We have elderly people who can't get online, the registration process for the vaccine, super responsive, that we're able to give voice to these concerns and actually get put into play. So kudos about that.
Yeah, and I think your point is an excellent one in regards to that. So I think once again, we are, like I said at the beginning of this, is we know what's on the horizon for our older adult community, and I think you'll see in some of the examples that I give, and this is something in the work that I've been doing for 27 years is we have to do it from a collective impact framework where we're all working together around shared vision, shared mission, and communication, so we can really have the outcomes that we want to have. And I know in the work that I do, this wouldn't be possible without everything, the support that we've gotten from the community. So a little bit about our older adult programming in neighborhood and community services. We have standalone senior centers. And so we have 14 of those in Fairfax County. We have older adult programming at our community centers. And then we have our Center Without Walls program. So there are some areas in the county where we don't, at this point, have a dedicated bricks and mortar facility. And so part of what we're doing is taking places up during the day, like places of worship, community rooms, and we've brokered partnerships with these groups to allow us to use their space to run senior-like older adult services without having a bricks and mortar senior center. And then the other thing that we do at all our centers is our inclusion services. Part of the other work that necessarily doesn't fall in this bucket of work around older adult programming is, and I didn't put it in here, is kind of what I've alluded to, some community capacity building that we do with our nonprofits, and working with them and collaborating with them to bring more services for older adults. And then Palace and I do a lot of work just around planning. You'll see this come a little later in the presentation, just around informing around capital projects and new facilities, either county owns or corporations or businesses in regards to maybe building lands and new projects for housing for older adults and a variety of different things. Our eligibility for our senior centers is we do allow Fairfax County residents and non-residents to come. There is a fee. It's a sliding fee scale. It's 50 and over, and then the important piece here is that people have to meet our eligibility requirements. And we do some screenings with folks. We monitor them throughout the process. This kind of comes back to the inclusion services that you see up at the top here. We have a contract with ServiceSource, and they come into all of our centers and provide inclusion services as well as case management services. So if somebody is starting to struggle participating in our senior center, the case manager and our therapeutic recreation specialists that work for ServiceSource will start helping to adapt and modify activities, or if we need to start moving somebody along the continuum of care, either to adult day healthcare or to another nonprofit or privately owned group that serves older adults. We want to make sure that we're helping families as they're trying to navigate such a difficult time as it relates to those different transitions. At our senior centers, we do provide transportation, and we do have a meal each day. So I just listed here our current senior centers and their locations. Right now, the centers aren't open. I'm going to talk about that in a few slides here from now, but we're strategically placed throughout the center. We are going to have more centers coming on board, and specifically some really good opportunities in the region that we're talking about today. I just want to talk a little bit about the programming and our approach and as it relates to older adults. And as you can see up top here, these are the outcomes that we're looking for: that older adults are healthy and well, that they're developing positive and supportive relationships, that they're engaged in their community, that they're connected to families and services, and that they're safe. And if I were to look at these outcomes in the research that I've done, the number one predictor of folks living happy and healthy lives throughout their lifespan is the positive relationships that they have with others. And so a lot of our work is starting to pivot to make sure, especially during COVID and when people come out of COVID, that they have a real healthy resiliency circle. So if things aren't quite going right, they have folks that they can turn to. So majority of our work in NCS kind of is driven by what you see here in regards to the types of programs and services we're looking to offer. I just want to talk a little bit about our COVID-19 response. Just something that I'm really proud of in regards to our staff and just the work that they've done. When we realized we were going to have to close our center, we opened up a virtual center for active adults. The link is here. So basically, we have created a virtual senior center, and it's become so popular that we now have 2 different Zoom accounts, and we're offering activities in the evening. We have been able to bring on 20 different partners, and this comes back to the collective impact that I've talked about in working with the community. So we have, for example, George Mason University, Northern Virginia Community College, just different partners, Resting Community Center, Insight Memory Care. They've all joined our virtual center for active adults. So not only do you get the opportunity to participate in the county-led activities, but we are also, our partners have allowed folks to participate in their activities as well. The virtual center is broken up in a few ways. One, we have live activity programming, and then we also have on-demand and then self-directed activities. And then for those folks that don't have internet access, what we've been doing is on a quarterly basis, sending them monthly activity packets, but also we're sending materials and supplies for them to participate in the activities. The other thing that our staff has done is we were asked to take over supporting the congregate meal and Meals on Wheels. And so using fast train buses and our staff as runners, we've been delivering meals to those folks that don't have access to getting the meals that they need. And we just passed the delivery of 500,000 meals. So something that we're really proud of. I always tell the staff that I work with that this specific initiative, I really believe has saved lives, because somebody can get anywhere from 7 to 11 meals a week, and we're making sure that they're okay. The other thing that we've done is wellness calls. So any senior that had come to our center in the last 2 years, last July, we started calling them and finding out what their needs were. And if anybody needed services, we were connecting them to services. We continue to do follow-up wellness calls throughout the pandemic, just to make sure the people we serve are doing okay. And then lastly, Palace and I have been very involved in setting up equity vaccine clinics and being really intentional about going into communities where maybe there is access issues to getting the vaccine or vaccine hesitancy. So for example, a few weeks ago, I ran a clinic out in the Sully district, and we had 600 shots available. The target audience was folks 65 and over and folks with underlying conditions. And I can tell you in looking at the data, we definitely got the group we were targeting, especially around those folks who are 65 and over and individuals of color. So I think we're continuing, as the county continues to get people vaccinated, we're doing work around making sure our marginalized and underserved communities are getting access to these vaccines, which we all know are important. I just want to talk a little bit about what's on the horizon for us. We do have a plan at some point to return to in-person programming, but we are going to continue a hybrid model when we open up again, which I'm excited about. So we're going to have virtual and in-person programming as we move forward. So I think this is, you always got to look at the silver lining when something happens. And so I think for our older adults, if somebody's sick or can't come to our center for whatever reason, they're going to be able to still participate virtually. We have a few projects that are specifically coming online in your area. The Lorden Community Center, which will house a senior center. The Kingstown Senior Center for Active Adults is going to be moving to another space still. And then here I have a typo, but this is the Springfield Community Center, will be a bond item in 2024. And then Palace, I know, is working on Mount Vernon, which is the Racket Club. And she may want to talk about these towards the end after I get through the presentation. And we have a few more initiatives that are going on. As I alluded to before, 15 or 20 years ago, somebody with a disability such as mental retardation or autism, their life expectancy wasn't as long as we expected. And now we are seeing an uptick of those folks who are aging gracefully and just like their non-disabled peers want to have the same options and opportunities that everybody else has. The other work that our staff is doing is around protective factors for older adults. And we've started a project with George Mason University where we're going to try to identify what are those protective factors and risk factors that we need to really hone in on to make sure that we're designing our programs and services and informing our residents about if you have these protective factors, you're gonna age gracefully in Fairfax County. So I just have here some suggested future presenters for you. Definitely the one Fairfax. Not familiar if you are aware of trauma-informed care, but I think for us, it's in the 20 plus years that I've been doing this work, having knowledge about trauma-informed care has probably been the most eye-opening thing for me. And then just some suggestions that I know Palace and I can link you all to in regards to for future speakers. So I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to come today and more than happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Evan. There were some things that really clicked into place for me. I don't know about you guys, but that was fabulous. I think beyond my expectations to really understand so much more about the depth of services. I learned so much about what Fairfax County is doing. I'm a newbie kind of to this space, and many of you have understood this for a long time, but it can be a labyrinth. But to know all that you're doing and the support efforts and the long-range planning, and just very, very grateful for your presentation, Evan. Look forward to learning more, and I love that you gave us some suggestions. So let's open it up. Palace, did you want to fill in any gaps there? Did you have any more you wanted to
I think the questions might generate some additional information that I can hone in a little bit more regional, but we welcome the questions, definitely.
Yeah. What was the Mount Vernon aspect? What was that?
Sure, absolutely. So probably back on May of 2020, Fairfax County purchased what was the Mount Vernon Racket Club or Athletic Club, depending on your knowledge of that facility. And with the intent to turn it into a community center. So we're right now going through the planning and zoning and permitting to ensure occupancy for July of this coming year, but also we'll be thinking about just the provision of services for the full spectrum of ages that we serve. Not necessarily having a senior center at the location, but definitely being intentional about services for older adults as well. So we're hoping to have that one coming on board much sooner than the Lorden or the Kingstown project, which are projected for fall of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have some time to go for that one, for those two.
So you said July of 2022 or this July?
This July. So
okay, wow.
Right now we're still zoned as recreational. So we'll only be able to have recreational activities, but I'm sure there will be a pickleball court or a multi-surface court. So we'll have pickleball lines and other sports that would be available to all populations. But we're hoping to go through the entire zoning process for the full throughout the year. We'll be submitting the applications coming up soon, but I don't anticipate having a public usage for the building until next year.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
And Jan, I think to your point, you know, and I think this is, maybe you can see this in the presentation. We've started being really intentional about no longer having dedicated senior centers. And really, the county has decided that we want to collocate, you know, from an intergenerational perspective. And I think there's some real science behind that, because you allow for this intergenerational. And then I think from an efficiency standpoint, you know, most of our senior programming occurs during the day. It allows for really maximizing the sharing and usage of the building. So, you know, I think you're leveraging that building and getting the most out of it. And so I think the days of having a standalone senior center, we're really going to be moving away from that. And we've had a lot of success, you know, at Providence Community Center when that got opened up, and just the opportunities that it afforded itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. It makes such a difference to connect on all levels, right? So anybody else have any specific questions for these two at this time? Holly's coming in. Speaking of intergenerational.
Is that
So this is Mallory. She's joined us for a little while.
Hi,
Mallory.
But I was wondering about this, the long-term care coordinating council. Is that something that anyone can join? If one of the businesses like at Paul Spring, if they said, hey, we'd like to be part of this, they could join that?
So anybody can join it. I think what they go is they attend a few meetings, and then Jan can probably speak better to this at some point. There's I want to say a vote. It's not really a vote. I just think they want to make sure whatever organization or individual is going to join the group kind of aligns with their vision and mission and values. And so I think that's, you know, that's really important. And so I think Patricia Moore, who I know got an invite to this, I would definitely invite her back at some point and talk about that. She is totally deployed right now handling vaccine stuff. So I'm filling in for her, just handling some of the stuff. She's doing the long-term care stuff, but anybody can join that, Holly. And once again, I think it's a great group. If you really want to get engaged and you're looking for opportunities to really maybe partner with folks where you can leverage. I see that happen a lot, where somebody's like, hey, I'm doing financial literacy. I need this in my community. And it allows for folks to look where those synergies are, so we can work together and kind of maximize each other's strengths.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And I'd be happy to introduce, Patricia's been working so hard as a liaison with this COVID-19 response committee that I've been working with. So the rest of the committee, the long-term care coordinating committee, isn't meeting regularly, but this COVID response team has been. We've been meeting, it was every week for a while, and then every other week. It's been a lot. And she's so happy, Holly, to bring that together just as another informing piece. Anybody else have any questions? Lisa, Mandy, Lisa, you guys good? Yeah, they know a lot. They're embedded in the community. But and I don't want to take the time now, but I may connect with you individually just to get a little bit more deeper into the connections with some of the things that you're doing. Just fascinating. And Palace, thank you so much for being here.
absolute pleasure.
Informative. I think what I'd like to do, I know Holly's recording this, perhaps what we can do, because we have many more members in this committee, Holly and I can maybe take a look at sending, if with your permission, sending the PowerPoint to the rest of the committee and perhaps the link to this recorded session, because I think that for us and for working in this sector and this section, this was just very powerful and really good for us to have all this information. So
absolutely. And Evan, if you could just add your email address, my email address to one of the slides so that when they send it out, folks have our.
Yeah, actually, I didn't get to show it, but it's on the last slide.
Oh, good.
Perfect.
I
Okay,
have
so
a question. I have a
Go ahead,
question.
Lisa. Yeah.
Evan, what part of Fairfax County are you in? Because it looks beautiful.
Thank you. You know what I've had it to do? I got to be honest. I have a 14-year-old daughter, so I've learned the best way to control her walking back and forth. Background on, so I had to learn that pretty early, or we would have definitely got in Photobomb during this presentation. So
Oh, that's okay. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a big challenge for all
Yeah.
parents.
yeah, but I would just
I was
really.
going to share that it was somewhere in Sully, and you
Right.
I wish.
they had a beach area.
But I would just, really encourage you, I think, Jan, even if you're thinking about building out your membership here, you and Holly, if I think that's a role we can help play, be think partners. If there are other folks you haven't connected with that I think would be good to be part of this group, I think we're more than happy to help make those connections. And I think I would just say this again, if I was going to give advice to any group starting off, I would really probably make sure I would have somebody come in and talk about One Fairfax and really have a conversation about within this group, what does that mean for this resource group and really having that dialogue. I just, every place I go now, I really tell folks, I think that's a starting place.
Good, Evan. Yeah, I like that idea.
Holly did bring in folks at one point to talk about, and I know Brian Hill has been to this meeting as well, right?
Oh, we haven't invited Brian to this
Oh, okay. I
meeting,
thought
but
he had
he's
come.
talked
Okay.
to the chamber, to our board. But yeah, it's probably been a year or so since we've had Brian.
Time to come back. Yep, absolutely.
Mhm. No, appreciate the suggestions. And I think particularly in our region, the issues of equity and access are, the disparities are large and accentuated. If I'm not speaking out of turn, I think being on a lot of these other, the ventures and community groups, looking at the housing issues, looking at access issues, looking at food insecurity issues. Wow. So listen, we're at the top of the hour. So glad you guys were able to join us. What a great conversation. I wish we had many more people, but I think the concentration of your efforts and being able to record this, I'd like to leverage that because of what you guys have offered us as an opportunity. And Evan, for sure, I'd love to follow up with you specifically on some of the other things that we can work towards as well.
Absolutely.
One last thing I'll say is that the whole hybrid idea is, I think it's here to stay. For me personally, I never got on Zoom in my entire life before this. And now, in my membership, I've got my 80 and 90-year-olds who love coming up on our chats and things like that. So the connection is here to stay, even though we're going to start building a little bit more in person as time goes on. But it has changed us. And I think some of it is for good and for some good reasons, So thanks for your time, everyone. Holly, thank you for coordinating. Lisa and Alyssa and Mandy, thanks for being here. Palace and Evan,
Thank
great
you.
service to the county in so many ways. Thank you for the education, and we'll see you guys soon, and we'll see you next month.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.